Hello, Tribe. So we're here today with trainer Chad Mcbroom, who's a senior member of the Raven Tribe. And we're going to talk a little bit today about a new product that's going to be on the market. It's called the A.r.k. And I want to introduce Chad. Chad's been a longtime friend, one of my best friends in the training community. Excellent trainer and a subject matter expert on not only knife work but on firearms. So, Chad, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself to the tribe members who may not have met you before?
Yeah, so thanks for that kind introduction, by the way. I've been training martial arts since I was 11. 31 years, I guess, this year. So I guess I just gave away my age, but anyways, my background got background in American Kempo, Japanese karate and Aikido. Done a lot of Filipino arts, Pilates, Wing Chun, just kind of run the gamut, trying to learn as many different people and as many different things as I can. And so I guess one of my main focal points nowadays is on etched weapons. That's kind of what people know me for.
Now, Chad, tell us a little bit about the A.r.k. For those members of the tribe, I know we've been seeing some teaser photos of this piece of equipment, and I'm an enormous fan of the design and of the concept. It's a karambit, and why don't you tell us what A.r.k. stands for?
Okay, so the A.r.k. stands for Active Response Karambit.
Okay.
And to give you a little background on this, A.r.k. Pinkerton Knives, knife maker, he had a longtime customer of his that was operating overseas and ran into a situation where he went into a structure and the guy grabbed his rifle, had him pinned, and where he couldn't bring his rifle up to bear. And so he ended up drawing his knife and cutting this guy off of his weapon. Then he found himself in this conundrum of, what do I do with my knife? So, thinking all this obviously happening in milliseconds, but he's going through this process of, do I ditch this? Do I ditch my knife so I can get both hands on my weapon and control my weapon? But then I just had to cut this guy off my gun, and so I may need my knife. So we don't want to ditch it. And then there's the issue of introducing a weapon into the situation that that this guy could pick up and use against him. And then there's no time to sheath the knife, so he cuts the guy off, and he's able to create distance, and he's all these things are kind of going through his mind. And if I remember the story correctly, he ended up, just hanging onto his knife and bringing his gun up and engaging the threat. But after the situation, he was thinking about all this, and he's like, man, what would I do my weapon would have jammed? What if I needed to reload? Just kind of all these things going through his mind. So we went to Dirk Pinkerton, whom he had bought several knives from in the past, and was a loyal customer of Dirk's. So he goes to Dirk and he says, hey, can you design a knife that I can use to cut somebody off my gun, last-ditch weapon retention scenario, and then be able to retain that knife, function my weapon, clear malfunctions, reload, do all those things without having to worry about what am I going to do with my knife now that it's in my hand. And so out of that, scenario, out of that real-life situation, the concept for the A.r.k was born.
So this weapon's function is to be able to transition smoothly between use of an edged weapon and use of the firearm.
Correct.
Now that opens up a world of applications and benefits for not only soldiers and operators, but also for law enforcement as well. When I first saw when I first saw the design, I was really interested in how it was put together, and I understand you had a fair share of input into how this weapon was designed. And for those of you who haven't seen it, it's very small, the karambit on the smaller side. But what caught my attention was where most karambits are meant to be gripped using the index finger, this one was not. Now, can you tell me a little bit about why the design went that way? Because on this particular weapon, you're actually using your middle finger to grip the weapon instead of your index finger. Where are the benefits, and what was the logic behind that design?
Yeah. So before I answer that question, just kind of give you an idea how I got involved in the project, as you mentioned that at the beginning of the question. So Dirk was working on this concept that he had. He was kind of going off of a karambit, modified karambit type concept, and he was working on this design, and I actually saw his designs on social media, and I don't remember if it was Instagram or Facebook or what it was, but I saw the design, and he was kind of talking a little bit about it, and he was actually getting a lot of flack from some of the readers, some of his followers on this design. It's kind of like, well, that's dumb. Why would I want to do that? Why would I want to hold a knife in my hand while I'm using a gun? And that was kind of how I came in, because I saw what he was trying to accomplish, and I got it. I'm like, yeah, I get it. I get where you're going with this. And so, after an exchange, a little bit of an exchange between the two of us, he asked me if I could kind of come on board and help him with this design, come up with this design. So the middle finger design, that was one of my contributions to the A.r.k. And if you notice on the A.r.k, it's not just a karambit, your traditional karambit, where it has a ring, that your finger goes through, that aids in retention. There's a little bit more to it, and you'll notice that it has this this protrusion at the top of the ring. And so what that does is, and I refer to it as an index finger counterlock. And so what that does is that groove, that extension at the top of the ring that has a finger groove in it, it allows your index finger to go over the top, and it then locks the karambit in place in your hand. So you can literally hold the karambit, hold the A.r.k. Once you initially grabbed it and got it in place, you can then completely open your hand, and the A.r.k. is not going to fall out of your hand. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to dangle around your index finger like a traditional karambit or like A.r.k. or another type of knife that has a finger ring. It's not going to dangle free because it actually locks into position against the other fingers.
Now, Chad, one thing I noticed with the design as well is that if anybody out there listening wants to grab a karambit, grip it correctly, and then try to grip a pistol, they're going to realize it's not a very comfortable grip, one, and two, it's not going to be a very good grip because you do need the proper alignment when you're holding a pistol or any other type of firearm. And what I noticed with your design is that the edged weapon will set a lot more flush and naturally into the hand, allowing you to have that proper grip.
Exactly. So, and that really comes from two aspects. One comes from the kind of the minimalist aspect of the art, and then also if you look at the design, the handle, the spine of the handle is actually curved inward towards towards the edge of the knife, and what that does is it actually allows the arc. When you establish a two-handed shooting grip with the arc in hand, it allows the fingers to kind of fit behind the arc in a natural position. So it kind of contours around your firing. And that's really the arc is intended as a support hand blade. All of my use with the arc when I'm training and everything that I've been doing with the arc, with the prototypes that I have in hand, has all been done with my support hand, with my non-dominant hand, because that's how it's intended to be used. If somebody comes in and grabs your firearm, and you're pinned up against the wall, you've got no other choice but to employ a secondary weapon. That's where the arc comes in. You can draw the arc with your support hand, and now cut the guy off your gun, and now you've got full dexterity of that support hand to where you can grab that. You can reach out and grab a hold of that guy to redirect him to get offline and draw your firearm and get a clear shot up under the guy's arm or in his rib cage or just to get out from that position, whatever it might be. So it's not even just weapon manipulation, but it gives you that opportunity to grab hold of your opponent and physically control him and move him if need be. I've had people, with this up on social media, I've kind of made statements along the lines of this being the first and only knife that was made for gun toters, with the gun toter in mind. And I've had other people, counter that with comments like, that it's by far not the first. You've got the Stock P, you've got some other knives that had that mention. But what they miss is the kind of what goes with it, in saying that it's the first knife that's made specifically for weapon retention that allows the user full dexterity of their support hand. No other knife out there that I know of that can do that. And maybe there is, but I'm not aware of it. I'm pretty up on knives.
Now, Chad,
I do a lot of knife abuse and stuff. So
yeah, and we're both very big knife aficionados. Both of us are edge weapons trainers, and I can honestly say when I first saw this thing, that was my response. I said, finally, we have the shooter's knife. That's the first thing that came into my mind. And no, I really have not seen anything like it on the market. The impression that I have and what I applaud in this product and how it came together is really dependent on insight. You have an excellent professional knife maker, as your starting point, which is phenomenal. You're not looking at a cheap, piece of metal. It's not mass-produced, to be a cheapy throwaway. I mean, you have a real professional, starting the design and working with the materials. And then you get the input of an edge weapon expert. Now, there's plenty of knives on the market that have been promoted, and we've used different edge weapons experts to be consultants on the design. And that's great because I've picked up many knives, and I've said, hey, this looks beautiful, but I don't know who the hell designed it, because they don't know the first thing about knife fighting. So that's a plus. And again, just a nod to the people out there in the community. There are guys doing that, and they've made good knives. But I really would be hard-pressed to name anybody, and I would challenge anybody to find a knife that was designed with input not only from an expert knife trainer, but also a master firearms instructor. I mean, this is really hitting the weapon and its design from both ends. And I don't think that's been done before.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know either, but it definitely it does bring things together. And again, thank you for that accolades there. But yeah, I that's really been vital for this whole thing is like I said in the beginning, there's a lot of people, a lot of knife guys out there that were looking at the A.r.k. in its early stages, before I was able to get involved. And, they just didn't even grasp the concept. And so, to be honest with you, I really think my firearms background and my tactical background probably played a more vital role in me getting involved in this project than even my edge weapons background. Because, that understanding of the edge weapons and everything played a large role, and it was a key factor. But just having the edge weapon experience really does nothing when you throw a firearm into the mix,
right?
And you see that there's a lot of weird stuff out there, and you and I have talked about this, and I'm not going to name any instructors or any organizations or any systems, but there's just some weird stuff out there, and you can see where some people in the edge weapons community try to step into areas where they really have no business going, and they might be really good with a knife. They might be really good edge weapons instructors, but, in order to try to market what they do to law enforcement or to the military, they start trying to integrate knives in ways that, along with firearms, that don't go together. And when you look at those things from having a law enforcement background and a tactical background, you see some of that stuff and you're just shaking your head, like, no, what are you doing? Because they tend to drop back on what they know. They know the knife, and so I'll give you a good example, and I may maybe stepping on toes and might be giving away some of the groups I'm talking about. There's a video out there of some guys doing what's supposed to be like tactical firearms training, and they're going through and they're engaging targets, with their firearm, and they're moving and shooting and doing some stuff, which isn't bad. It wasn't too bad. It wasn't the best I've seen, but it was okay. And but then they come to a point where they're like, their weapon runs dry, and they draw out a karambit. And they draw out a karambit, and then they do like a 360 check, like, making sure making sure the right side, left side's clear, and all that. They're drawing around it, and I'm like, dude, why are you drawing a knife? You've got a gun. You're in a gunfight. Reload your stinking gun. So
absolutely.
So there's that issue, and you've got to know where your lines are. And I have to tell you, like, one of my big fears with the art is that people will, once people have kind of understand the concept, which now that it's out there, I think people are starting to understand it because it's becoming a big hit. But one of my fears with the art is that people are going to build a system around it. And you're going to see trainers out there that are they're going to pick up the art and they're like, "Oh, I can shoot and I can reload and I can clear malfunction, all this stuff with this blade in hand," which is what it was designed for. And if you look at my social media, I show pictures doing combat reloads and mag exchanges and clearing malfunctions and establishing two-handed shooting grip. That's the idea behind it. But what I'm afraid of is that people are going to develop a system that focuses on the blade instead of on the firearm. And that's completely contrary to what's for. And so where I'm going with that is, if I have the A.r.k. on me and somebody goes for my gun, if I have the opportunity and the space to do a quick breakaway, secure my weapon and twist or redirect the guy or whatever it is, that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to draw my knife. Where the knife comes in, where the A.r.k. comes in a weapon retention scenario, is when I've got my back against the wall and I can't go anywhere. I can't get any leverage, or I'm on the ground and I can't get any leverage. My last option is, this guy's going to get my gun out. My last option is to go to a secondary weapon and being my knife and cut this guy off. And so now I've cut the guy off my gun. I've created distance. Now I can retain my weapon. I can get the two-handed shooting grip on my gun that I've put so many thousands of rounds down range with. And if need be, I can reload and I can clear malfunctions and do all of those things while the fight is still on, and not have to concern myself with ditching my weapon and introducing that into the scenario, or trying to function my gun while I'm fumbling with this knife in my other hand.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Chad, I think you're right, because there is a good percentage of people out there in the training community that always want to put their own personal stamp on things, and I think that they try to fit things in, like you said, where they don't belong sometimes, just in an effort to create a system and to be able to trade, maybe get their own little stamp of on that thing and get known for it and put it out there and be able to teach a course on it. But you're absolutely right, and I think people should understand that it's a shooter's knife. It's not it's not what you want to go to constantly and forget about all your other tools. You have to make sure that you have things in proper perspective and keep everything where it's supposed to be. So that's a great insight.
Exactly.
It's a really great insight, and I hope that the listeners, if they end up picking up an A.r.k., which I'm sure they will, definitely keep that in mind. Now, Chad, I wanted to touch on one more thing here before we head out, but when I saw this and, you gave me some of the specs on the quality of the materials, again, the designer, the primary designer who worked on it, I was expecting a pretty hefty price tag on this thing. And I was very, very surprised to find out that this is not something that's going to break your wallet. This is a very accessible price range for people. Can you tell us a little bit about why you guys kept it this way, and go ahead and give the listeners kind of a ballpark on what they're going to be spending on an A.r.k?
So, the price tag that's been set on the A.r.k. is $79.99. That's the retail price of the A.r.k. And the production and the sale and all that stuff is a little bit out of my. Well, actually, it's pretty much completely out of my control. I came in as a consultant to Dirk on this project, and and co-designed it with him. But in the end, she's the knife maker, and it's his business and his company. I just had the privilege of being able to be involved with this and continue to be involved with it, because it's kind of like I don't know, for lack of a better way of putting it, I'm the guy that understands, so.
Well, my hat's off to Dirk, because, like I said, this is a knife that when you explained the concept to me, and I was able to see it, especially on some of your social media videos, and I saw how functional it is, and I know we should, and the listeners can visit Chad's website and see all the specs, but I was expecting to pay, minimum twice as much for it, and more likely, seeing it priced at 3 times as much as what it's going for. So I was very pleased with that. It's always great to see products that are good quality products in the market, and that are things that you can legitimately afford in your budget.
Yeah, it definitely is, and and there's going to be people out there that are still going to think the price tag's too high, but it's a matter of function, and
well, to those people that would say that it's too high, I would throw a challenge out there for you. Go pick up any other karambit on the market and try to replicate the things that you do in your teaser videos. It's not going to happen. You're not going to be able to do it. You're paying for the ability to do these things, to have a functionality and a way of integrating these two weapons into live tactics. And again, I tried. The first thing I did after we talked about it, you explained to me the benefits and the pros of the weapon over a traditional karambit. First thing I did was run to the training bag. I pulled out my pistol trainer, I pulled out my karambit trainer, and I tried playing with it. And it was just a cluster. I wasn't able to do any of it.
Yeah, because the traditional karambit is, and I'm a big fan of the karambit, and and just because I have an A.r.k. doesn't mean I'm not going to carry my Fox 599 or my Max Venom D.I.K. Those are great knives, and the karambit in itself is a great design. That ring it's great for retention, weapon retention. It eliminates the need for a guard on the knife, because the ring is really functioning as your guard and preventing your hand from slipping. I mean, the karambit design, whether it's the traditional karambit with the hook blade or not, that finger ring design it's probably one of the ultimate designs, in my opinion, for a true combat knife that you're using in battle.
But I think what you said there is
But you can't. Sorry, but you can't. The thing is, when it comes to what we're accomplishing with the A.r.k, you still can't do with the traditional karambit. And like I said, I've had people say, well, you can do that with a regular karambit. And no, you can't, because while the ring acts as a great tool for retention and everything, once you open your hand to try to grab a magazine or something, your knife's just dangling there. It's just dangling around your finger. And you can do some things Perhaps you can do them a little bit better than you could with a regular knife, with just a straight handle, but you're still having to occupy at least 2, maybe 3 fingers to control that knife that's in your hand.
And I think you touched on that, and I think the key phrase was, the karambit is an excellent combat knife. The A.r.k. is not a combat knife. The A.r.k. is a weapon retention tool. It's an edge weapon meant to be used for weapon retention. And those are very different goals. And accordingly, the designs should be different.
Exactly. And, think about it. It's like the difference between an AR-15 and a Glock 19. They're both excellent firearms. They serve different purposes. Within a similar context, If I had to choose between an AR-15 and a Glock 19, I would pick the AR-15 all day long because it has 30-round magazine and it's a rifle caliber, and rifles are superior to pistols. But if I'm walking into a movie theater and I'm not, an active shooter, if I'm walking into the movie theater as a citizen who wants to protect my family, guess which one I'm going to choose?
Exactly.
I'm going to choose the Glock 19 because I can carry that, I can conceal it on my person. And so, you're always going to have those people that are like, well, this one's better than this because of this. Like, yeah, but you have to look at the context. What is it for? And what is the intended purpose of it? And like you said, the A.r.k, the predominant intended purpose of the A.r.k is a last ditch weapon retention. I'll even say primary weapon retention tool because it is a weapon in itself, but you're using that weapon, secondary weapon, to retain your primary weapon. So, and that's really what it comes down to. Now, does that mean you can't use the A.r.k as a self-defense tool on its own? Absolutely not. But that is a primary tool. And I'm actually had some ideas running through my head lately about the benefits of the A.r.k as even a self-defense tool. And I'll just kind of run these by you real quick and your listeners, especially with everything that's going on right now. And, us knife guys, at least people that live in the real world and are realistic in our thinking, we realize that, if we have to use a knife for self-defense, it's going to look really bad on us in court, right? And I would dare say that your ability to articulate and understand use of force is even more vital if you're using a knife for self-defense than if you're using a firearm, because firearms put holes in people. They tend to be a little bit more clean in the results, but somebody's attacking you and you have to use a knife, you may end up cutting that person 5, 6, 7, 8 times. And there's going to be blood everywhere. And, the court's going to look at that and go, what? To them, it's going to look like you just slaughtered this person in cold blood. And, and so at that point, all these factors are going to come into play, your ability to articulate and what did bystanders see and those things. And so now picture yourself in a situation where you have to use a weapon to defend yourself. With the A.r.k, you draw the A.r.k and you cut yourself away and you create distance, and there's cameras rolling, but you don't know it, but you create distance. and now you've created distance, and now your hands come up. Both your hands come up in that like defensive posture, but hey man, you know, I don't want any trouble kind of thing. Now how does that look on you know, from the bystander's perspective? It's like, yeah, I saw it. This guy over here attacked him. You know, he pulled something out and you know, it looked like a knife. He used it, and then he came away, and all I saw was both hands come up, like, and it was as if he was saying, you know, don't hurt me. And it's just something with the A.r.k. you can do. You can open your hands up.
Excellent thoughts on the subject, Chad. So the A.r.k. is definitely something that you guys want to put into your toolbox and take with you. Chad, we're about wrapped up on time here, but before we go, and we're going to put some links into the video so people can find you, but why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on the web?
Yeah, so you can go to my website. It's my company is Comprehensive Fighting Systems. If you Google that, it'll be the first thing that pops up. Or you can go to the actual web address, which is www.compfightsys.com. You can go to my website, and there's links to all my social media there, as well as links to the A.r.k, information about the A.r.k, and you can actually order the A.r.k directly on my website. We're taking pre-orders right now. Looks like the turnaround for that is going to be around 6 to 8 weeks, is what we're guesstimating, because it's just going into production. So, but you know, we're trying to get people are chomping at the bit for it, and so we're trying to get those early birds in so they can make sure that they got an A.r.k in hand the minute they're off the production line. So,
well, excellent. Well, Chad, thank you again for your time. It was great having you on, and hopefully we'll get you on here again soon. Again, Chad is not just a knife designer. He's a edge weapons trainer, firearms trainer, you know, tactical combatives trainer. So there's a wealth of information that we are looking forward to picking your brain about in future episodes, Chad.
I'll be looking forward to it.
Great. Well, thanks again, and everybody tune in for the next episode coming up soon.